Dave here, and today we're going to check out the work of Michal Sawtyruk. He's based in Warsaw, Poland. He's a painter, drawer for films and games, and thankfully he does have a YouTube channel, and he does do voiceovers of his time-lapse paintings, so that's pretty cool. I'll be linking the channel in the description below. So he does have a very unique style, right? Very flat type of style, where it's almost like an editorial type of illustration, right? And he doesn't have a lot of texture in his work. He does have variety, values, hues, that kind of variety, but when it comes to his brushwork, he just keeps it simple, right? And it does have a very simple look when it comes to its to the textures, at least, right? And what's so cool about his work is that he does do animations of his illustrations, and he does them in Photoshop. So that's kind of cool. And I don't know, it just makes it can make your paintings look more interesting, you know, if you can like make animations out of them. He doesn't animate the whole thing or the whole illustration. He'll usually leave like or he'll pick something in the image to kind of animate. Oh yeah, he also does have an Instagram, so I do recommend you follow him there, because he does post more on his Instagram than on his ArtStation portfolio. And yeah, he has this kind of style, right? It's very graphical in nature. I can see a bit of rake brush use in some parts, but for the most part, there's hardly any texture. Maybe a bit here, right? And in a way, it's kind of impressionistic, because it's not super refined, right? It's heavy on the shape, sure, but it's there's a bit of exaggeration in his work, right? And it's kind of just leaving an impression of the scene, right? So it's kind of like a mix of both, where it's kind of graphical and impressionistic at the same time. And his work does end up looking clean just because he focuses more on the shapes, so you can see a lot of like hard, sharp edges. And he does break a lot of the values down, right? I'm not sure where I was going with that point, but yeah. Fuck. And he likes using the lasso tool, you know, to kind of make those quick, sharp selections, right? And I've noticed in his painting sessions in his YouTube, right, videos, he's not very clean, like that clean with the layering. Obviously, he does have to use layers to kind of achieve this sort of look, but he's not like super mathematical about it, you know? He kind of wings it in a way. But in the end, his paintings, his illustrations look rather cool. Reminds me a bit of the Spider-Man film, the animated film, the recent one. The style of it kind of has this similar vibe, right? Very energetic, dynamic, and sharp. Oh yeah, when it comes to his perspectives, he does kind of push it a bit, just a bit, to make it more interesting, obviously. And I'm not sure who this is, but yeah. And you can see him break the values into like shapes, kind of like Liang Mark or any kind of artist that does gouache paintings. They tend to break things down by levels when it comes to creating gradations in hues or values. Like you can see the actual kind of change or shift in tone and shit, you know? It's not always going to be just a gradient or soft brush, right? There's going to be this kind of gradual build up or change, and yeah. You get the point, right? And again, it does have a very sharp look, right? It looks very presentable. I mean, a lot of his work can actually end up becoming some kind of print, you know, that he could sell online and make some extra money, right? Again, you can see a bit of that rake brush, or maybe a texture brush that's kind of, I think it's some kind of texture brush. Or rake brush, right? Again, not a lot of texture. I do see a lot of variation again. And we look at how chaotic this whole area is. This patch of green, right? But it's kind of contained within a very strong shape. But within that shape, you can see this kind of chaotic abstraction of different shapes. And it does look very graphical, super cool. And I think this is why his work is kind of easy to animate, just because it's like the style is not simple. The shapes are kind of simple and contained, so that it helps to make the animation part easy, right? Even the way the trees are done. I mean, look at how impressionistic and graphical. Look at how impressionistic and graphical it is at the same time, right? And look at the clouds done in this piece. Compare it to the recent video I did of Muyang Su or Zhu. It's almost weird for Michal, right? It's very messy, but it's more presentable. Just because of the style, like it's a flat kind of illustration, right? Anyway. Ew! So this is more of an interior scene. And look at how he does the edge of this patch of light here. There's a bit of orange, right? So it's not always going to be a clear cut between the light and the kind of part in shadow. There's almost always going to be this kind of shift in the light, right? Like a mid color, right? And again, look at each kind of plane, right? For example, look at the wall here. Look at the bed frame. There's going to be a bunch of things within that big shape. It's not going to be as clean, but it kind of contributes to that. Like it compensates for the texture, because it doesn't use a lot of texture brushes, but because of that variation, right? That diversity of different shapes within the bigger shape, it kind of compensates for the texture, or it is the actual kind of texture, right? In a way. So, and again, it doesn't have to be perfect. He does exaggerate things a lot, but it still looks pretty cool. I mean, look at the bed, like the actual kind of bedding of the bed. It's pretty messy, right? Not super clean, but you kind of get it, you know? It's about the big shapes. Think of the big shapes. So composition-wise, he's not an amateur. Like, he knows how to make it the frame kind of work. And look at how he breaks down the coat here, right? I don't see a lot of soft brush use. He's very most of his paintings are solid. You know, there's not a lot of like where there's a bit of gradient use, I would say, especially for the lighting maybe. But for the most part, it's a flat illustration, right? It's almost as if he's doing a manual version of Photoshop's cutout filter, right? But obviously he has more artistic liberty when he's doing his own paintings or illustrations. Oh, I can see a bit of soft brush use here, right? For the shadows, right? But yeah. So a night scene, right? Pretty cool. And even the colors he's using, it's very well, not retro, but very reminds me of one of the pieces of Alexander Mandradjev, his Doctor Strange concept art. Very, very saturated in a way, right? Another night scene, right? Look at how he does lighting here, how he breaks down the gradation of light. It gets stronger here, obviously, because this is the main light source. You can see a bit of highlights here on the posts or in the posts. So there's also a bit of storytelling in his work, right? It's not just about the composition, but there's a bit of a narrative. And it kind of makes sense because he does do animation, so I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what he does for a living. I mean, he does say he's a painter and drawer for films and games, but I don't really know what he does. You know, he's kind of like a mysterious figure, right? Very, very cool. I mean, look at how he communicates this sense of mystery, right? Who the fuck is this guy, right? Right? He doesn't have to show the entire figure. The silhouette kind of just takes over. When it comes to trying to find meaning in illustrations and paintings, I'm not really that refined or cultured, so I'm going to have a hard time trying to extract some kind of story or image or narrative, right? But yeah, even the way he does like the reflections here, I'm not sure if he did it manually or if he kind of copied it, like just reversed the image. But yeah. Again, you can see some style change in the cars and in the vehicles. He's not very realistic in that regard. And it does help, you know, contribute to that whole style of his, right? It's kind of like a graphical, impressionistic, shapy, exaggerated style. And you can even see a bit of that brush spacing in some of his strokes. And it does provide a bit of texture, but that's pretty much it. It's not very strong, right? But you can see it from time to time. Even in the walls here, you can see that brush spacing. It does help add a bit of texture. In the foreground, you can actually see a bit of that splatter brush use. Some kind of splatter brush, right? So this is some kind of police drone. This could be in Brazil, maybe. Yeah. Again, look at the wall. It's not even that clean. The edges may be a bit clean. It does get kind of rough in some parts, but yeah. It's kind of like a contained chaos, you know? Like each shape is pretty strong, but within that, it does get a bit messy. But it still works, you know? So that's kind of cool. And his work does have a lot of contrast. I think his darkest values are pretty much close to black. It's not fully black, but it's, you know, it's there, right? So this is a New York City street. Not enough rats. Oh, look at the way he did the what do you call this thing? It's some kind of railing. Fuck. I'm not sure if it does use like a screen display kind of tablet or a simple graphic tablet, because you would need to make some pretty accurate, not super accurate, but you would need to make some strong selections with the lasso tool. So maybe, I'm not sure if it does use, because I do think it contributes like the where, like how, like illustrations like this, like these where you have to use the lasso tool. I think it's better to have a screen display tablet than a graphic tablet. Just because it's you can be a bit more accurate, right? Who knows? Oh, you can see a lot of that brush spacing here, and it does get very, very messy, right? But the messy is kind of contained, right? There's a chair here, some kind of cabinet thingy, statue, post. Even the shadow of this chick is pretty interesting. The hair does actually start to look like more of a painting, right? But because it does get slightly smoother, or the values are pretty close to each other. However, in her coat, it does get, you know, more contrasted, right? And look at the reflected lighting, right? In the other side of the coat, it's kind of like a green, a yellow green, right? almost like a dark gray, and then the browns here with different lighter values. Lot of contrast in his work, right? So, personal painting of his. He does get very impressionistic here with the trees. He's not painting within a specified shape. He's going raw and rogue. So that's pretty interesting. And it does work, Like the first part of the painting is kind of very heavy on the shapes. And then in the second level where the trees are, it does get a bit more impressionistic. So it can work together, And you know what? I do see a bit more variety here. I mean, look at the way the road was done. It has more of that kind of gritty noise splatter texture, And it goes hand in hand with the impressionistic trees here in the background where it's kind of raw, right? This is pretty cool. I think this is more of a well-rounded kind of illustration in terms of style. For his style, I think this is pretty well-rounded. But it still looks like it's his work, because most of it is still kind of graphical in nature, right? Pretty cool. Again, high contrast, stylized shapes. Oh, okay, a babe, some kind of profile sketch. Looks Asian-ish, right? The eyes. Some texture here on top. It's mostly between a blue and a red. Those are the main colors here, except for the skin. But you can still see the two main colors being reflected on like the face. The lips are red. You can see a bit of red here in the shadow, right? And obviously the reflected lighting is bluish in nature, right? And you can even see some reds here in the eyes, right? Coming from the jacket, perhaps. Very, very cool. I love the way he did the hair here, right? Lots of variety in terms of values, right? Textures are pretty simple. The hues are pretty simple. It's just between a blue and a red. And the accent color would probably be the face. The browns, right? High contrast again. Very, very graphical in nature. She's hot. So we have a street painting, right? Very, very graphical again. I love the way he does like the wet surface here. It probably just rained or something. You can see that brush spacing, right? And he likes to use the same noise / splatter brush. Oh fuck, you can see a bit of soft brush use here, I think. It's kind of foggy, so he probably used a maybe not the default soft brush, but some kind of atmospheric cloud brush to kind of create this effect. So when it comes to like making fogs and shit, at some point you do have to use like a softer brush, right? Look at how chaotic the interiors of these stores are, right? It's just a bunch of shapes. Very, very abstract, right? Yeah. And we have another babe. And there's a bird. She's got some slippers, right? And the waves are pretty cool too. Chemtrails. I see a bit of green. I do see a bit of green in the sea. Even in when you're like close to the shore, it's not always going to be like a clear blue. There's going to be some kind of green in it. I'm not sure why, but yeah. Even for things like waves, he was able to make it kind of graphical still, or kind of sharp, right? I mean, water is kind of a fluid thing, but to kind of make it work in this style, where it's kind of like sharp and shit, and still make it feel like it's moving, I think that's pretty cool. Oh shit, he did go beyond the edges, I think. You can see it here with the brush, right? So, you know, not everything is contained within a strong silhouette, right? Or a strong shape. You know, you can always go beyond that a bit. Yeah. The pants are cool. The jeans. It's pretty high waist, so, you know, whatever. Nice hair. Pretty much black. It's still pretty high contrast, right? You can see a bit of darks here in the folds and in the shadows just a bit. And obviously the hair is kind of the darkest point, right? Yeah. So that's it for this art review of Michal Sawtyruk. He does have a YouTube channel, so I do recommend you follow him or subscribe to him there. And check out his Instagram, because he posts more on his Instagram than his ArtStation. So no worries, I'll be linking all of that in the description below. So thank you for watching, keep drawing, keep painting, and stay free.